I recently had a request from Michel, um, and he wrote to me saying, "Could you please do a cav tutorial for V3?" And yes, because these last few years I've been sort of on a ride with my cav. I've been testing out cav. I've been trying to learn how to play cav. I've been trying to learn how to play against cav, and that happened because long time ago at the Scottish Nationals, I played a game against Topher Buckle and his Polish cavalry, and he beat me. And that sort of had me thinking, well, there's something with this cav. But that was back in V2. And then my buddy Michael started playing Polish cav, and he was really good at it. And he became the Danish national champion using Polish cav. And I was like, mm-mm. And then I started building cav myself, my partisan cav, my Cossacks, and and I started playing around with them, just because I think I should know how to do that. And I figured out that they are way different. Um, Really, they shouldn't even be called infantry. They should be something else because fielding units of cav is just so different to fielding infantry units. It's a completely different mindset and it's a completely different way of using your units. So let me tell you what I've figured out for V3 so far. I've made a PowerPoint for this, of course. And here we go. By the way, this image is Michel's very lovely painted winter army of Germans. So this is my cavalry tutorial for Bolt Action V3. Disclaimers as usual, this is just what I figured out so far. It's not like it's gospel, it's not something you can like... and I will say that cavalry is very difficult. It's because you have to change your mindset about what you're doing. So it is not easy to play. It's not an auto win at all. Anywho, so what is cavalry? Cavalry is basically men on horseback, but in bold action they are defined as being infantry. The horse itself is actually a 3-point upgrade for an infantry unit. That upgrade gives you a 9 or 18-inch move, 9 if you're advancing, 18 if you're running. Most of the time you'll be running. You also gain an escape move, so that's quite a lot of maneuverability you're gaining for those 3 points, right? You gain an escape move of 9 inches. However, you can no longer go down, which does suck a bit, but since your cavalry most of the time are way in the enemy's lines, going down is not an option anyway, because you'll be shot at at point blank range most of the time. You also suffer a -1 to your cover save, which again sucks, but it's, I mean, the horse is fairly big, right? So it's an easier target, and the horse doesn't really it can't crouch and make use of the natural cover of the battlefield. So I mean it's realistic. It's just it sucks when you're playing cavalry. Your rifles also become pistols, so that's quite a lot of downsides that come along with these very positive sides. But crucially, you gain Tough Fighter. So you don't even have to buy an SMG, you become Tough Fighter, which makes you kind of good in close combat. Yeah, I know, close combat, it sucks, right? But if you're going into close combat, you really need, as an attacker, you really need to have Tough Fighter. If you're fighting close quarters against a unit that hasn't got Tough Fighter, and you are extremely likely to win that combat. So it's the Tough Fighter is now become way more important in close quarters. What are its strengths? Cavalry are okay-ish assaulters, because they have that Tough Fighter, because they have the long range. But you are going to have to set up straight lines of assault, because apparently you can no longer just move around obstacles. You have to be able to go in a straight line. But that is also possible most of the time. So they have the speed, they have the reach to be okay-ish assaulters, right? And that speed, by the way, is also very, very good for maneuver. So cavalry needs terrain where it can maneuver. If you have a very terrain-heavy board, that can be limited, depending on your type of terrain. Cavalry does not like when there's a lot of linear obstacles on your board. But it does like if there's a lot of line of sight blockers, dense terrain, ruins, buildings, forests. That is where cavalry really thrives. Weaknesses. Well, the horse is basically a big pile of panic. Most horses for World War II were not trained war horses. They were just, horses. And I know that the Cossacks did train their horses quite a bit, but for the rest of the cavalry in World War II, mostly it was basically just transport. The horse was your easy transport to the battlefield, whereupon you would get off the horse and start fighting on foot. So the horses are not trained to suffer the loud noises of a battlefield. So the horses were a big pile of panic. Now, in bold action, assault is very costly. So the horse, the cavalry, because you're assaulting, because that's basically what they can do, you're going to suffer casualties. Your cavalry is going to have one or two assaults, and then it'll be combat inefficient because of the casualties, even if you win. That is just the name of the game now. As I said, cover is bad for you, and you are going to have to stick your head out of cover in order to make those charges. So don't rely on cover. Rely on line of sight blocking, not cover. Rough ground is worse because it limits your range, which is your greatest asset. And also, the actual models are actually kind of a problem because for infantry, we are playing true line of sight. So if you can see the torso or the head of an infantry model, you can see the infantry model. But cavalry is a lot larger, like the actual size of the models, which means that you can be seen over linear obstacles that are even higher than infantry can. So most of the time, cavalry can be shot at. Fortunately, we have the escape move. So, what cavalry builds am I seeing for V3 as is right now? I'm seeing flankers. Flankers are it's a build where you take 2 units of regular cavalry to your and pick those for your army. They are between 6 and 8 man strong. And you deploy them preferably either together on one flank so they can support each other and one of them can move up if the other one is forced to escape move. I'll explain how that works in a minute. Or you split them, one on each flank. So it's a question of what you think you want, and when you deploy them, what can you see in your enemy's deployment. If you have a flank that is open where there's like 1 or maybe 2 enemy units on that flank, go and watch a recent tactical playthrough video I did where I used cavalry against an enemy armored fighting vehicle and a bunch of small teams. I did exactly this. So either you double up on one flank, and I could do that because I could see that he hadn't loaded that flank very heavily, so I could double up against him and make the charges. Or you go on each flank, hoping that one of the flanks will not be as heavily infiltrated by enemies. Potentially, you could even outflank these, since outflank is now very, very good because you can You can choose to go up the side, or you can take your whole back line. So the cavalry can go on the other flank actually from where you wanted them to be, and with their movement, they're quickly up where you wanted them to be. Outflank is a real possibility if you're fairly certain that you can bring your outflankers in. So, like, the enemy doesn't have Brandenburgers and stuff. And then you just worm your way up the board as quickly as possible, using terrain. So you jump from one piece of terrain to the next, preferably behind line of sight blocking terrain. So forests are really good for this, ruins. And then if you take an order, use run most of the time. Burst from one piece of terrain and all the way behind the next one, and just jump your way up. If you're shot at, use escape moves to bring yourself behind line of sight blocking cover again. And if there are any objectives in the way, grab those along the way, because cavalry is absolutely great for just jumping up, taking that objective, running away again. And now with the sticky objectives, that objective stays yours. And then once you're in the enemy's back line in turn 2 or 3, you start assaulting his backline units, which will be his, small regular MMG teams, or unit of 5-man regulars with an LMG or an artillery piece. All of those are prime targets for these flankers. You will still suffer the casualties, and you can assault 1 or 2, but by that point, you have already panicked your enemy, and he has lost order dice, and you have taken objectives, hopefully. So, all of that is good. The other build that I see, I call that the Ride of the Rohirrim. It's the charging. It's the assault cavalry, and this can basically right now only be done by very large units of German cav, Cossacks, potentially even SS cav, fanatic SS cav, and by Polish lancers. No one else has the ability to field this, and you need 2 or more large units of veteran cavalry, preferably with some special rules, as I said. You need them to be 7 or 8 man strong, because we need more bodies in our assault units for V3. And again, preferably I would deploy these on one flank. Again, here you do not split them. You run them together, and this is because one of them is very likely to be shot at. That one unit will want to escape move, but then the other unit can charge, right? So always double tap, always have 2 units on that flank. Now, my buddy Michael, who plays Polish Lancers regularly, he has said multiple times that he has started outflanking most of his games. He's just outflanking all the time. And I can see this being viable. The only thing is, if you're outflanking your assault cavalry, you're going to have to suffer. You're going to have be patient. So it's a really difficult playstyle. You have to be patient until your outflankers actually deploy. Once they deploy, you have them exactly where you want them, but the earliest charge you can make is in turn 4, right? That may not be a problem, since you only have like 2, potentially 3 charges in your veterans here. So it may not be a problem. That is exactly what you have in turns. But, it's a long game until that point, right? You're going to have to figure out how to survive until the point where your outflankers come in and ride down the enemy. As I said, always double tap. Use 2 units in conjunction with each other. Go for the straight lines. Go for the straight lines where you have that 18 inches down to that enemy unit. And then just know that your charges are going to die. Ride to death and glory, because that's what they'll do. They'll be shot to pieces, and they will die in close quarters as well. So you need them to be veteran. You need them to survive for as long as possible. So why should you outflank? You should outflank, and this is Michael's ideas, by the way, not my own. I'm using outflank a lot more than I used to, but I'm not an outflanking player. Cavalry has the reach even from outflank, and the outflank gives you a lot of options for where you want to deploy them. So you shouldn't really outflank your infantry on foot, right? You should outflank your mechanized or your motorized infantry or your cavalry. That's where the infantry slot can actually outflank. And if you have carbines, you should move in 9 inches, take the shots. That's a further 6 inches because carbines counts as pistols. So the first turn you shoot, second turn you charge, and you only, as I said, have approximately 2 good charges anyway. Always aim for the weak enemy units. So, I've been talking a little bit about different tactics, different moves that I make with cavalry, and I've seen cavalry players move, right, in these ways. So here we have a situation where there are a couple of line of sight blocking forests. My cavalry is sitting behind one of them. One cavalryman is peeking out. It's waiting to see if I get the first orderized next turn, right? So end of my turn, I move up. I peek out one cavalryman, 18 inches, straight line up towards an American machine gun team. Now, unfortunately, my enemy gets the first orderized. He takes the shot, and I immediately escape, move forward up to the next forest where I'm in total line of sight blocking cover, so he can't shoot me at that point. So for the enemy MG team, taking that shot actually didn't really pay off at all. He would have been better off, I think, just going on ambush, but that would mean that we were sitting there just watching each other, and I could then say, okay, I am willing to take that ambush because I have more than he does in men, and charge him and kill him anyway. I am very likely to lose 1.5 dudes rushing into an MMG ambush, right? But that depends on whether or not I'm veteran or not. So that is the escape move up. You push further up with your escape move, and you so that when you're deploying your cavalry, look for different blocks of line of sight blocking terrain that you can move one to the other, preferably 9 inches away, so that you can do the escape move up. Next move is the double tap. I've been talking a little bit about that, right? Again, same situation, but now I have 2 cavalry units. So both of them are peeking out behind the forest. When I say peeking out, you have one dude that's like looking straight in a straight line towards your target, right? So they're peeking out on either side of that forest towards our American MG team. Now, the MG team has the option now of firing or going on ambush. If he fires, we have the same problem. The unit that he fires at will then escape move up, and then the other unit will be free to charge him. If he goes on ambush, then what I'll do is I'll take one unit and I'll run that unit up to the next area terrain, hiding. What does he do then? Does he shoot from that ambush? Because if he shoots from that ambush, yeah, he'll kill a few dudes, but then he'll get charged by my other unit, right? So the double tap is really deadly, and it gives your opponent very bad choices for what they can do. Also, this is what I'm seeing all the time, consolidation for advantage. Now, when you have been charging, which you should do a couple of times, and I'm going to show you 2 charges here, right? When you've charged, what you want to do is, you want your consolidation move to set you up for what you want to do next. So you have 2d6 in consolidation, which is double the amount of normal infantry, right? So that's quite a lot more speed to an already speedy unit. So either you set up for an escape move up next turn, or for a double tap, right? So in this situation, we have my cavalry. I've charged the bazooka team, killed those. That was easy, an easy target. And then I have a choice. Do I set up to rush towards the MMD team? Or do I go to either side of one of these forests? Now, ideally, I would want to move further down my opponent's line, so I would want to go to the forest on my left side, if I'm coming from my right side, right? I want to go further up there, but sometimes you're not going to be able to reach it. So you roll the dice and see what you can reach, and you try to grab that line of psychic buggers, which sometimes means you have to go a little bit back. If you have to do that, set up for a double tap or the straight line, at least, so that the opponent has the choice of going on ambush or firing. And firing, he will just make you escape move. So, what have I learned about running cavalry so far? It's fun, but very difficult. You can see that the tactics that I'm explaining here are very different from running infantry. They're very glass cannon-like, right? They hit hard, but they also go away really quickly. And they are so fast. So damn fast. You will be in your opponent's back lines turn 2 if you really want to. And you should. If the opponent doesn't watch his flanks, you should be in his back lines immediately. It loves line of sight blockers. It hates rough ground. And it is perfect as maneuver outflankers. So it works perfectly on the flanks. It works really badly in the center, where typically the enemy will have something that can move around that LOS block where you've escape moved behind, and you will get shot anyway. But on the flanks, oh, it works well. So, thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you also Michael Fia and Topher Buckle, who taught me all I know about Cavalry, mostly by kicking my face in. That was it for me today. I hope you enjoyed that. Good luck with running your cavalry, and to quote the Rohirrim, death. See you next time.